So today what we're going to be doing is taking a look at common lawn care problems. You know, we get a lot of questions when it comes to different diseases and different types of weeds. So I want to go over a couple different things to make sure that you all know what we're dealing with as far as different difference between broadleaf weed and a type of grass, or you know what an actual disease looks like, lawn care disease. So we'll do a little Q&A. If you got any questions, make sure you ask them. But the first lawn care problem that we commonly see is bent grass in lawns, our lawns in Ohio. Most of Ohio lawns are a Kentucky bluegrass mixture. So when we see bent grass out there, a lot of people have the tendency to say, oh my gosh, that's a weed. No, bent grass is a grass that's found on golf courses. And what happens is a lot of times that birds feed in the grass, eating the grass seeds, and then they come to your lawn and they do their business and they pretty much plant the seeds of bent grass in your lawn. Now, bent grass, even though it is a grass, it's an invasive grass, there's really no way to get rid of it other than rounding it up and replanting Kentucky bluegrass. It'll continue to spread, so you want to eliminate that problem as soon as possible by rounding it up. I know killing your grass sounds counterproductive, but if not, it'll continue to spread. If you don't mind, just understand that you're going to have to live with it. So I'm going to show you exactly what bent grass looks like. If we look right here, this is regular Kentucky bluegrass right here. All right, you see it's nice and fine stem, fine turf grass blades. But we move into this spot right here, and you notice that it's very thick, very clumpy. There's a lot of individual blades here, and if you zoom out, Stephanie, the camera girl, you'll see a circular patch of this that looks different than that. This is common. This happens a lot in people's yards, and I want you to know that this is not a weed. This is nothing that a lawn care company should be held responsible for. This is just nature. Bent grass will appear in people's lawns. There's no ifs, ands, and buts. And really, the only way to get rid of bent grass in your lawn is to round it up, kill it, and replant bluegrass in this spot. However, this is my lawn. I don't mind it. It's a small patch. I'm going to keep my eye on it. But you can tell the difference between bent grass and then typical grass. Another grass that we have a problem with a lot in Ohio is we have this beautiful bluegrass growing up, but then we have this patch right here of this fat bladed, what looks like a fat bladed weed growing in here. This is not a weed. This is actually fescue. This is actually a tall fescue that a bird, again, was eating at somebody's lawn. Seeds, brought it here and, did its business and planted the seeds. So this is actually considered fescue. Now, you'll get patches of this growing in your lawn with your bluegrass. This is typically normal. Don't worry about it. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing a lawn care professional can do. But you're gonna see patches of bent grass, fescue every once in a while. If you have a lawn care company, what you won't see is weeds. All right. Another common occurrence in lawns, and we get a lot of phone calls about, is mushrooms. There is nothing wrong with your lawn, and you can see I have a few mushrooms growing right here. These are typical mushrooms. Right here. You don't want to put them on your pepperoni pizza or anything. They're typical mushrooms. Don't eat them. But mushrooms are actually a sign that you have really fertile soil. What happens is that a lot of times when there's a lot of dying organic material and very damp conditions, I water my grass every day. Sometimes you'll get mushrooms to grow. It's just common with humidity, moisture, and a lot of organic material decaying in your soil. It's actually a sign that you actually have some pretty dang good fertile soil. So don't look at mushrooms as a problem. They'll eventually dry out and go away. Then again, I have little mushrooms everywhere in my lawn here. They'll eventually die out and go away. And there's nothing a lawn care company can do. There's no treatment for mushrooms, and if there is, it's way too expensive. It's not worth your time. As we move into summer, you'll notice these start to drift away. A couple other things I do want to point out. Our lawn care disease. Right now we're seeing a lot of what's called red thread. And red thread typically is a disease that grows in your lawn in small patches. And red thread is commonly seen as a pink fuzzy growth on top of your lawns. And in the early morning, what you'll see here is almost like a cobweb effect. You can see a little bit right there of a cobweb effect and a little bit of moisture on the blades. You can actually tell that it's red thread by the pink fuzziness that's on the blade itself. So again, this is an example of a disease called red thread. And red thread is actually a fungus. Yes, it's a fungus growing in your lawn. I got some on my finger, so now they're sticky. Red thread is an actual disease that grows on your lawn. And really what you want to do is spray what's called a fungicide on it. Okay, and fungicides can be expensive if it's your entire lawn, or it can be actually pretty cheap to treat just spots in your lawn. But the important thing about it is I have small little patches of this disease called red thread, and we want to nip that in the bud. Okay, we want to nip that in the bud because unlike your mushrooms, a fungus will continue to grow, continue to inhabit your entire yard. So you want to make sure that you get it nipped in the bud right away and get it taken care of. Okay? And two more things I'd like to show you. If you have questions, make sure you ask them. Again, we have some mushrooms right here growing, just to see. Next thing I want to show you here is a phenomenon known as ring spot. Okay, and this is a disease that grows, and you can tell it. I don't know if you can see this in the picture here, but it looks like a frog's eye. This is also a disease that you'll see. It's a fungus, and it'll grow in 3-inch to 15-inch radius, and you'll notice that you have a green area here and the fungus is growing right here. Now this will continue to get bigger unless a fungicide is applied. Again, it's a common disease when it's hot and humid, and if you can tell I'm sweating right now because it's very humid out. It's a common disease that grows in this type of conditions, and it's perfectly normal. Not to worry. There's a fungicide that you can spray and nip this in the bud so it won't get much worse. And then the last thing that I want to show you, we're going to have to walk a bit. Next thing that I want to show you is some people confuse it for a weed. It's not actually a weed. It's called a sedge. And a sedge is pretty much almost like an onion. It's a bulbous type of plant that often grows in your landscape bed, and it can also grow in your yard. I'm going to show you in a landscape bed over here what I'm talking about, but this is called nut sedge. And nut sedge, a lot of people will say, oh, well, my landscape company should be responsible for it. Yes and no. It's not actually a weed. It's actually a plant that is growing in your lawn, and I have some in my in the little ditch area of my landscape bed here. And it's actually a bulbous type plant. And let me see if I can get it to get some bulbs out of here. I think I ripped them off. But nut sedge is defined by these triangle shaped, and I'll rip one off here. And it's a triangle shaped grass blade. I don't know if you can see that here. but this is actually a sedge. This will actually grow like little onion, little bulbs right off of here. This isn't a weed, this is actually a plant. So when we talk about broadleaf weeds, and you know, this is an example of broadleaf weed, people will say, well, you know, not sedge, you know, it's a weed. It's an unwanted thing in my lawn. Well, it is unwanted, I agree with that, but it is different than a broadleaf weed. So it requires a different specialized treatment to actually take care of it. So again, if you have this growing in your lawn in a small patch, Weed Pro will take care of that for you, you know, at no additional charge. However, if you have a massive outbreak, or if there is a lot of them in your yard, you're gonna have to get a treatment for sedge, just like you would for a disease in your lawn, to nip it in the bud. So again, this is a sedge. So these are the common things that you're going to see in your lawn. If you have any further questions, you know, feel free to ask them. I'll post this video on YouTube, and I hope you learned something. And as always, if you have a question, email us. It's info@weed-pro.com. Feel free to ask any questions that you have. Thanks.
Good. Does it say